So what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be starting a new series where I look over old replays that I think are very, very interesting for a variety of reasons. We'll get to that. And just provide my commentary, bit of a backstory and the lore of the game, which oftentimes can be more interesting than the actual game itself. Um, and I just do a lot of going through old replays and watching them, and I find it really interesting to make a series out of that because I don't know. It's just something I enjoy doing more so than even actually playing the game, to be honest, at this point. Um, and full disclosure, there will be some bias here in the games I select. If you know, you know with this one. But, you know, we'll see how it goes. Anyways, this game is ESM versus JRL. It is from finals tiebreakers of Doubles World Cup of Pokemon. The first tournament that actually occurred in Scarlet and Violet. So it's a very early metagame tournament. It's actually a really interesting time position, right? It's this is I would call this almost the last week of early SV. This was the last week that Annihilate was legal. It was the last week of the first tournament, um, amongst other things. So it's really in a pivotal era of SV. Bit of context on that. This tournament started off with stuff like Dondozo Tatsugiri legal, along with Fluttermane, both of which got banned relatively quickly after the pools round of this tournament. And then Annihilate was quickly discovered to be just absurdly broken beyond belief, to be honest. During semifinals, it was used a lot in semifinals, but then in finals there was actually a lot of countering Annihilate, but Annihilate itself was actually not brought that much, which is interesting, despite it being legal. But the backstory on these two players, JRL, one of the greatest doubles players of all time. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. Particularly of the era he's been around, the last 5 years. JRL has just been consistently one of the best players. But then ESM on the other side here, long-time veteran Pokemon player. Played a lot of singles, I think, for a long time. Nowadays he plays VGC. He actually won the regional last year. But this was before he really got kind of famous for VGC or what have you. Obviously, it was pretty well known by people who new Pokemon players. But anyways, he was playing for US West, and JRL was playing for Europe. Um, and so this was a very pivotal game. It's game two. Europe had won the first game. So if JRL wins this game, Europe wins the tournament. If ESM wins this game, it goes to game three. And just looking at the Pokemon here before we do anything else, we can see on ESM's side here we have Snow of Cetitan. Now this is one of the reasons why I chose to do this game first. It's a personal favorite of mine. I've never actually seen Cetitan used in any other game besides this one. In Scarlet and Violet, doubles overused, right? And so we've got Snow here, Goldango, natural fit on Snow teams, Roaring Moon for speed control, and then Arcanine, which is just generally good at the time. Good Pokemon when there's not things that are just strictly better than it legal. And then on JRL's side here, we have Iron Bundle Chi-Yu, the successor to Fluttermane Chi-Yu. Fluttermane got banned, and then people just started using Iron Bundle next to Chi-Yu, which was also very strong. It's very, very difficult to switch into those two Pokemon. And then Glamora, an interesting Pokemon that was pretty good at the time. Less things that could really punish it as much. Can set up T-Spikes, can click Mortal Spin, and it's a Pokemon that I'd say is pretty good into Annihilate. And then Zarina to potentially cover for obviously Fake Out and stuff, but oftentimes it would carry stuff like Rapid Spin. I'm not sure if that's the case on this team, because it did have Glamora for that if it wanted. It's actually really funny that there's 3 Pokemon on JRL's team that can actually clear hazards. And then Roaring Moon, which was, again, just pretty good at the time. Good Tail 1 Pokemon. Very, very bulky. Fluttermane not legal, etc., etc. So, how did we get to this point? How did we get to game 2 of the tiebreaker for really the championship of this tournament? Well, it's an interesting story. So this game, game 2, occurred on Friday. The game that occurred on Thursday, when which Europe won, is one of the games I've ever watched. I'm just gonna let it play out. It's not that long. As we can see, Stacks here was on US West, then Rat Packer was on Europe. Rat Packer was pretty new at the time. Very good player. People were like starting to realize that he was like the real deal, particularly around this time. As we can see, like the rocks go up and the T spikes go up. Um, and what makes Stacks' team here a little bit questionable, in addition to the fact that it had three choice bands, is the fact that the only special attacker is a Volcarona, which now takes 50% and a poison and an earthquake from its own Great Tusk and basically just dies. Now the Annihilate has clicked bulk up next to Wo-Chien, and now nothing can KO it. Um, so yeah, so Stacks just forfeits right there. There's actually not really much they can do here. Um, and the game is pretty much over. And this was a very, very demoralizing loss for US West. Putting the pressure on ESM here to really change it, switch things up. A very important game. Um, and Europe really has all the momentum, right? JRL might be the best player on their team um, at this point in time. Um, and ESM had not really like played like a whole lot of like doubles team tours. I mean, he had played World Cup I think multiple times by this point, and DPL a few times too. But um, he was not JRL at this point in time. JRL is just very, very widely respected player. I think if we like check the predictions here, um, JRL was predicted to win by Arctic Blast, and I think a lot of people would have predicted it the same way. I mean, JRL is just a very, very scary and formidable player, and so things look good for Europe, right? Um, Game three, if necessary, would be between myself and Tenzai, and I think it was scheduled for like Sunday or something. Um, and so yeah, pressure is on here, especially on ESM. If he loses, US West will lose in the finals. It was a very good run up until this point by West, which was had a lot of newer players, including myself. And I don't think anyone really would have like predicted us to make finals. There were a lot of good teams. We beat US Central in semifinals. US Central was very, very scary, at least on paper. Um, and so yeah, very interesting game with a lot of stakes and a Cetitan. And so that's kind of why I like this game. So we'll just take a look at this game. Um, now that we've set the context and everything. Okay, so looking at this matchup here, right? We could see that like Chi looks very, very good, right? There's only two fire resists on ESM's team, and everything else it can really pressure with heat waves. Nothing even wants to switch in, even the resistance is. And then bundle is very helpful for speed control as well, or what have you. Um, so interesting matchup here. But on the same time, like the snow mode looks very, very good for ESM as well, right? Because 3 ice weeks. However, the other three Pokemon are all match up fairly well in the snow, um, at least on paper. Especially Iron Bundle. Iron Bundle can capitalize off of the snow while not having to set it and then just become annoyingly bulky. Um, and then the Glamora as well, right? 3 rock weeks can try to click Stealth Rock, apply pressure with that. Um, and so I'd say the matchup like slightly favors JRL here. However, the snow obviously can put in work, so JRL would have to be very careful here about positioning around that. Um, and the other thing is Roaring Moon on both teams. It was not actually a Pokemon that was like really used that much. So it's interesting that it's on both teams here. It was also on my team multiple times in this tour, I think. Um, okay, so let's go here. So what do they lead with, right? Okay, so ESM leads Great Tusk Goldango into Glamora Iron Bundle. So Goldango looks very, very good here. It'd be a little bit difficult to apply pressure to this Goldango with these mons. You could probably knock it out if the Glamora has Earth Power. If not, the Goldango is pretty free to just like do stuff. And Great Tusk, it's a little bit poorly matched up here into the bundle. However, um, there is the possibility of it carrying like Rapid Spin to remove potential hazards from Glamora. Um, Great Tusk is something that one of the few mons that like does not mind the Glamora matchup really as a physical attacker, right? Because it can just click Rapid Spin to remove all the hazards, which is obviously very helpful. Um, so this is a very interesting position, right? So if you're JRL, you're trying to get like the rocks up, right? Um, because it matches up well into the snow mode and makes it a lot harder to get away with that. But ESM here leading the Great Tusk, so obviously the possibility of Rapid Spin to preserve that. And then the bundle threatens the Great Tusk too, right? So a lot depends here on this first turn. Goldango can hit like both Pokemon with lots of damage from Make It Rain. Um, so what do we see here? This first turn. So the Great Tusk terrestrializes immediately. So this is really interesting, right? A lot of the time, you want to save your Terra. However, this is a very volatile matchup, and this is a very volatile metagame. So oftentimes getting like a early jump off of like a good Terra call could be very, very huge in this metagame. So the Iron Bundle goes for Icy Wind here, trying to get the speed control down. Will come into play for like later turns as well. And we can see the world's most socially aware engineer in the chat, telling everyone that this is going to be the last game of Doubles World Cup. And so Iron Bundle gets the Icy Wind off. And we'll see where the turn plays out from here. So the Glamora, I think, will move next. Yeah, it goes for Stealth Rock. Goldango gets a really big Make It Rain off. Bringing both Pokemon down to Sash. Both Sash is very interesting. Another thing I'd like to like comment on from this metagame. Focus Sash, stuff like Assault Vest or Focus Sash that could like guarantee you like live another hit was like very, very pivotal in this metagame. It was still a very early metagame, lots of offense. So being able to like live an attack that you like your opponent predicted you wouldn't is like very, very valuable. And I like that's why I would definitely respect the decision to be like double Sash here, right? And after you don't see the booster energy for bundle, that's kind of what you have to assume it is. And then Glamora at the time was also like majority Sash. So this is kind of predictable for them to both to be Sash. But very big Make It Rain. Goldango getting a lot of value here. And then Rapid Spin comes out from Great Tusk. So very, very great turn from ESM. Gets rid of all the hazards. The hazard potential is gone. It's a great turn. However, now he runs into the issue that Chiyu switches in here, right? And Chiyu, like, does a lot into these two Pokemon in particular. Gets the Beads of Ruin onto Great Tusk, which already doesn't have that great Spin-F. Then there's always the possibility of Iron Bundle carrying Icy Wind, right? So Chiyu is a very, very pivotal switch in here. Brings a lot of momentum to Jarrell's side, which he needs after going down a Pokemon and losing the hazards that were pretty pivotal. However, Great Tusk has used its Terra, and it's still weak to an Ice move, Freeze Dry, right? So if JRL has that, that's pretty huge. And now JRL has the momentum, right? So he gets to do a lot here. As we can see, Goldango does protect. Just gonna like scout out here. Freeze Dry comes out with Terra Ice from Iron Bundle, and it brings the Great Tusk so low that Heat Wave KOs it, right? And so that's pretty big for JRL. It gets a lot of momentum. The Terra Pokemon is now gone for ESM side. And Goldango is still stuck at -1 speed and is very much threatened. However, now ESM gets a free switch in here, and he brings in Cetitan, the Slush Rush Pokemon, which can put in a lot of work here. But the Zarina switches in here. Actually turns out to be a very, very good play from JRL. As the Abomasnow switches in, and the Zarina catches a Liquidation, and Cetitan takes Life Orb Chip. However, JRL then misses Hydro Pump, which is a very, very pivotal miss. It very, very much sucks for the rest of this game. Cetitan gets in for pretty much free, gets to click an attack, goes unpunished for whiffing an attack into a resist. And so now things look a lot scarier for JRL, right? Zarina is probably dead to an Ice move. Abomasnow can come in and set Veil. I will say, even if JRL hit that, Abomasnow coming in for free here is very, very pivotal. Getting that potential like Veil. So I think this was definitely like a very even position. If that Hydro Pump connected, right, it would do a lot. Titan does not have that much bulk, but it would live. It would get another attack off here, regardless. But as you can see, Titan now gets to go ham. It KOs the Zarina, takes an Icy Wind, a Terra Ice Icy Wind. And Abomasnow just clicks Aurora Veil, right? And now Roaring Moon comes back in. It's going to be the fastest thing on the field now. It can click Tailwind for speed control. However, it does something else. Arcanine switches in here. Could switch in, get in the Intimidate drop. Arcanine will catch a Hydro Pump, but behind the Veil, it will live. and Abomasnow gets a very big Blizzard off. So the tail one does go up. Um, and at this point, it looks kind of scary, right? For JRL. We don't have a whole lot to deal with the Goldego in the back. Or not the Goldego, the Cetitan in the back. The Pokemon, which, by the way, has never been seen before or since. Um, so now Roy Moon clicks Brick Break, and now this is pretty big, right? You lose the Veil. However, the Great Tusk clicks Headlong Rush, and the Abomasnow lives. Arcanine gets a big Wisp off. Blizzard comes out, knocks out the Great Tusk after Birdship, knocks out the Roid Moon, and now it's just the Chi-Yu. And so, in a very, very fast-paced game here, only like 7 turns to get to this point, right? ESM gets like a very, very big advantage, and the game is no longer losable, right? Um, and you can really see here how a Pokemon that's not very common can put in a lot of work, right? So Titan, although aided by the Blizzard dodge, um, did a lot of damage here. It really like weakened the board state. And so this was a very, very pivotal win. By a player who probably would have been considered the underdog going into the match. And yeah, a very, very interesting game. Um, Bringing the momentum back to US West, right? Had lost the first game. Um, Now in a position to go to game 3 and potentially win. Um, so yeah, I just think it's a very interesting game in terms of like it's a tight in a Pokemon that never really seen much use between two great players. Um, Obviously, a little bit marred by the hacks here, although the game definitely would have been very close if that Hydro Pump had connected. Um, and so yeah, just a really fun example of a Pokemon that hadn't seen much use. Um, and this game would age pretty well as um, Game 3 would happen. The replay is gone, and it would be one of the games of all time. But US West would get the victory in this tournament. This was my first team tournament. And really, I just think this was a very, very pivotal game. Um, Not to really like echo myself too much here. But yeah, it's always really interesting to see like Pokemon like Cetitan, which have a niche, right? Because very strong like weather abusing Pokemon. And really, we hadn't like seen too much snow, really. Snow would pick up later, especially with people like Fan Game using it, but in a different way. It would not be used as like just one component of a team. We have like an entire team to get dedicated to getting the veil up or what have you. Um, but this is a really interesting one, particular because of like the team is not standard by any means. Snow is kind of just a part of the team. Um, I'm going to go pull up the pace now because I think it is interesting, and I do not think it matters anymore. But yeah, as you can see here, Sash above Snow, Make It Rain, Life Orb Goldego with Thunderbolt, which is interesting. Definitely a play into like a lot of the rain they had brought. In finals, Europe actually brought like rain like 5 or 6 times, I think, to counter like potential Annihilate that we might have been bringing a lot during semis. And so we were kind of tired of rain, so anything that really dealt with that was pretty big. You could see a very, very specially defensive Great Tusk, right? With Rapid Spin. And that's what makes the Terra Ice on the bundle here such a pivotal thing, because that was not the most common Terra by any means. And so that allowed the Freeze Dry to get that KO on the Great Tusk, which gave the momentum back to JRL earlier in the game. Because without that Terra Ice, Great Tusk likely would have lived the Freeze Dry and the Heat Wave double up, because it has so much SpinF investment here. And then obviously support Arcanine here, Wisp, Snarl, Flare Blitz, Extreme Speed. Super power on Cetitan. Presumably to hit like steel types, probably like King Gambit and stuff. So yeah, just a really cool team. And really a defining moment in this tournament that I don't think really gets talked about enough. This was a very interesting game. Obviously, it's easier to point at the final game between me and Tenzai or whatever. But this is the game I think that really won us this tournament because things looked really, really dire after that like, loss of like 3 turns. And ESM really came out here and just like got the victory with a very creative team against a very tough opponent. if you're on Europe's perspective here, this is a very unfortunate game. You missed a hydro pump, etc. Um, so yeah. Anyways, that's just my analysis of this game. Stay tuned for more. Might be games where I'm a little bit less biased. Might not be. We'll see. But really, just two cool teams here, two great players, in a game that I think deserves to be talked about a bit more. Thank you for watching.